So algebra, we got example 2 of simplifying rational expressions. These get a little more tricky. So when we look here, our first one, we got 2x minus 12 over x squared minus 7x plus 6. Right, now when you first look at it, you're like, I don't know. So what you're going to do is just factor the top, factor the bottom, and see what cancels. So on the top, I can divide out a 2. So that would be 2 times x minus 6. The bottom, that's a trinomial. We could unfoil that trinomial. So to factor it, I'm going to look, so let's see here. I know it's going to be x times x, and then I'm looking at, this is a positive 6, but this is a negative number in the middle, so that tells me I'm subtracting both. So now I'm trying to find two numbers that I can multiply to get 6 and add to get negative 7. Now, one thing that can help you here is, I have an x minus 6 on top. I bet I'm probably going to have an x minus 6 on the bottom, because if I don't, there'd be nothing to cancel. So more than likely, that's what's going to happen. And if I look at this, to get 6, I know 6 times 1 is 6. Negative 6 plus negative 1 is negative 7. So that's going to be a 6. And that's going to be a 1. And now you can see, I can cancel the x minus 6's. So I end up with 2 over x minus 1. Now, I don't need those parentheses anymore, because it's the only thing on the bottom. It's the only binomial on the bottom, so that can just stay without the parentheses. So my answer, 2 over x minus 1. All right, let's look at the second one. 8a plus 16 over 2a squared plus 5a plus 2. So I'm going to factor the top. I can divide out an 8, and then that would just be a plus 2. On the bottom, again, this is going to be, I'm going to unfoil this. So I can see 2a squared. The only way to get that is 2a times a, 2 times 1. Then everything's positive, so I know I'm going to have pluses. Then my last term, 2, the only way to get 2 is 1 times 2. So I'm going to look at, so what's going to add up to 5? If I put the 2 here, I get 2 plus 2, which would be 4, not 5. So I think this is going to be a 1, and this is going to be a 2. And that makes sense because there's an a plus 2 there, so there's probably going to be an a plus 2 on the bottom. And if I were to check this, outer is going to be 4a, inner is going to be 1a, 4a plus 1a is 5a. So we're good. So now my a plus 2's can cancel, so I just end up with 8 over 2a plus 1. And that's my answer. Again, you can't do the 8 and the 2. They cannot factor, because 2a plus 1, that's one whole binomial. You have to be able to... Now, if there had been like a 2 here, well, then we could divide a 2 out of everything. But since we can't divide a 2 out of this 1, we can't do it. We're done right there. Let's look at our next one. 4 minus x over x minus 4. They almost look like the same thing, but they're not the same, because we know subtraction order does matter. If I had 5 minus 2, that's 3. But if I have 2 minus 5, that's not 3. That's negative 3. They're different. So what could I do? Well, what if I divided the top one by negative 1? So if I divided out a negative 1, if I divide out a negative 1, 4 divided by negative 1 is negative 4. X divided by negative 1, that's now positive x. And that's over x minus 4. Now I want you to look at this middle, this negative 4 plus x. Remember, we could flip that around, because addition can be flipped around. Negative 4 plus x would be the same thing as x plus negative 4. X plus negative 4 is the same as x minus 4. So this is the same as that. Now my x minus 4's cancel out, and I just have negative 1 over 1, which is just negative 1. All right, our last one. 16 minus 2m over m squared minus 64. So up top, I could take out an 8, right? If I took out an 8, I'd get 2 minus m. But the problem is, when I look at the bottom, I know it's probably going to be m something, not minus m. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a negative 8 out of this. And when I do that, or negative 2 out of that, I'm sorry. I don't know why I said 8. I meant 2. I could have divided the top one by 2 and gotten 8 minus m, but I want it to be m minus 8, not 8 minus m. So I'm going to divide by negative 2. And when I divide by negative 2, so negative 2m divided by negative 2 is just m. 16 divided by negative 2 is negative 8. And now I've got an m minus 8, which I think is going to help me, because on the bottom I have m squared minus 64. Do you recognize that? Anybody? Well, nobody's going to answer me because this is YouTube, but that is a difference of squares. I told you that's never going away, difference of squares. When we have a perfect square minus a perfect square, that can be factored as m plus 8, m minus 8. And if you were to do the FOIL method on that, you'd get m squared minus 64. Now, my m minus 8's cancel out, so I get negative 2 over m plus 8. I am fine with that as your final answer, but you will sometimes see it written where they take the negative sign and put it out in front of the fraction, like that. I'll take either. I'm not going to be picky, especially virtual learning here. It's not a big deal. So either of those would be an acceptable answer. All right, this was example 2. I don't know why it says example 1 there. This was example 2. I didn't update that. So you've got some practice problems. Do those. Check them with the answer key.